Little Johnny and the Big Decision. It was a warm summer morning in the small town of Maplewood. The kind of morning where the sun kissed your skin just right and the scent of fresh-cut grass filled the air. Little Johnny, an energetic 10-year-old with messy blonde hair and a mind full of curiosity, was sitting on the front porch of his family's house. He was deep in thought, occasionally glancing down the street at his friend Timmy, who zoomed by on his brand new 10-speed bicycle. The sound of the wheels on the pavement sent a pang of jealousy through Johnny's heart. Johnny had been eyeing a bike just like that one at the local bike shop for months. He imagined the freedom he'd feel riding through the neighborhood, the wind in his hair, pedaling faster and faster. But it wasn't just about the bike. It was about independence, about growing up, about being able to keep up with the other kids. That night, after dinner, Johnny decided to bring it up with his parents. At the dinner table, Johnny sat across from his father, John Sr., and his mother, Clara. They were an average working-class family, living paycheck to paycheck, but they always managed to scrape by. The mortgage on their modest home was hefty, and Clara had recently lost her job at the local bakery. They were cutting back on unnecessary expenses, but Johnny didn't quite grasp the seriousness of the situation. "Hey, Dad," Johnny started, playing with his mashed potatoes. "You know how my birthday's coming up?" John Sr. glanced up from his plate, his face tired from a long day at work. "Yeah, kiddo, I know. What's on your mind?" Johnny looked him in the eye, excitement bubbling up. "Well, I was thinking, I'd really like a 10-speed bike. You know, like the one Timmy has. I've been saving a little bit of money from mowing lawns, but I'm still a bit short." John Sr. exchanged a quick glance with Clara. She frowned slightly, then turned back to her plate. The air at the table grew tense. John Sr. cleared his throat and set his fork down, leaning forward. "Johnny, we'd love to get you that bike. You've been working hard, and you deserve something special for your birthday, but..." Johnny's heart began to sink before his dad even finished the sentence. "We just can't afford it right now," John Sr. said, his voice filled with regret. "The mortgage on this house is $280,000, and with your mom out of work, there's no way we can swing that kind of money for a bike at the moment." Johnny sat back in his chair, staring at his parents. The numbers his dad threw around didn't mean much to him, but he could feel the weight of their words. His dream of riding down the street with his friends, wind in his hair, faded before his eyes. Clara reached out and squeezed Johnny's hand. "I'm sorry, honey. We'll figure something out, okay?" But Johnny didn't feel comforted. He muttered a quick, "Okay," then excused himself from the table, heading up to his room. That night, Johnny lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, thinking about his dad's words. The mortgage. His mom losing her job. It all sounded so big and grown up, but Johnny wasn't ready to give up on his dream just yet. He knew his parents were stressed, but he also felt like he needed to take matters into his own hands. He looked around his room, his eyes landing on his backpack, still packed from school earlier that day. An idea began to form in his mind. If his parents couldn't buy him the bike, maybe he didn't need to wait around for them. Maybe he could find another way to get it himself. He could take some time away, figure things out on his own, maybe even find a job like the ones he saw in the movies. As the night crept on, Johnny's thoughts spiraled. He thought about the independence he craved, about how it felt like no one really listened to him. If his dad was planning on pulling out, like he overheard last night, then maybe his parents' problems were bigger than he realized. By morning, Johnny had made up his mind. He was going to leave, just for a while, until things calmed down, and maybe, just maybe, he could get his bike too. Johnny woke up early the next morning, the sun barely peeking over the horizon. He grabbed his backpack and quietly packed it with a few essentials, some clothes, his favorite comic book, and a bag of snacks he'd been hiding in his dresser. He tiptoed past his parents' room, where he heard soft snores from his dad and the rhythmic breathing of his mom. As he reached the front door, he hesitated for a moment. What if they woke up and stopped him? What if they didn't even care? He was just about to open the door when his dad's voice startled him. "Johnny, where do you think you're going?" Johnny froze, his hand on the doorknob. He turned around slowly to face his father, who was standing at the top of the stairs in his bathrobe, eyes filled with confusion. "I'm leaving," Johnny said, his voice trembling slightly, but filled with determination. John Sr. blinked, trying to process what was happening. "Leaving? What are you talking about?" Johnny squared his shoulders and looked his dad in the eye. "I was walking past your room last night, and I heard you telling Mom you were pulling out. Then I heard her say she was coming too. I'm not staying here by myself with a $280,000 mortgage and no bike." John Sr. stared at his son, completely caught off guard. He wanted to laugh, but the seriousness in Johnny's eyes stopped him. "Johnny, wait. You misunderstood," John Sr. said, trying to keep his voice calm. "That's not what we meant. Come sit down. Let's talk." But Johnny, feeling a mix of embarrassment and stubborn pride, shook his head. "No, Dad. I heard what I heard. And if you and Mom are leaving, then I'm going too." John Sr. sat down on the couch, motioning for Johnny to sit beside him. After a moment of hesitation, Johnny sat down, still clutching his backpack. "Johnny," his father began, choosing his words carefully. "When your mom and I were talking last night, we were talking about something completely different. We weren't planning on leaving you." Johnny frowned. "Then what were you talking about?" John Sr. sighed and scratched the back of his head. "Sometimes adults say things that can be taken out of context, especially when they're stressed. I was talking about pulling out of a deal at work, and your mom was saying she was coming with me to support me. That's all." Johnny's eyes widened as the weight of the misunderstanding hit him. "So, you're not leaving?" "No, of course not," John Sr. said with a chuckle. We're not going anywhere, kiddo. And we'll figure out the bike situation eventually, I promise. Johnny looked down at his backpack, feeling a mixture of relief and embarrassment. Ah, I thought you were leaving me. Jean Sr. put a hand on his son's shoulder. We never leave you, Johnny. No matter what. Just as Johnny began to understand the situation, the phone rang. Clara answered and turned pale after hearing the voice on the other end. John, she whispered, her voice shaky. It's about the mortgage. What could this new phone call mean? Is Johnny's family in deeper trouble than they realized?